Well, glad you could join me. Glad I can join you. Uh, Look, I want to say to begin with that I understand how difficult all this is. It's difficult for you. It's difficult for me. We are in a very, very tough time as a nation. I don't remember the combination of, well, pestilence, COVID, fires. In fact, I just a minute ago got a warning about the possibility for evacuation from where I am right now because of fires. Uh, and of course, everything else that is going on. The Black Lives Matter demonstrations, which are so critical, and our president fomenting anger and violence against protesters, kind of almost trying to foment a civil war or even a race war in the country. I hate to even say things like that. But this is what's going on. It's Labor Day 2020. Labor Day is normally a time for celebration. It's normally a time for people to march and share the kind of celebration of working people in the United States, not just labor people. Look, I was labor secretary 25 years ago. I understand that labor unions and the movement of working people is so critical and so central to this country, so important. But this Labor Day seems different. This Labor Day seems less of a celebration and more of a almost holding our breath, not only literally because of smoke and because of fire and also because the necessity to wear masks, but it also feels like since we are 8 weeks tomorrow away from the most critical election in our country's history, at least since the election of 1860. I mean, seriously, is there a more critical election coming up than we have had, certainly in our lifetimes? I think the last election that had this much weight attached to it was the election of 1860. I'm going to adjust this a little bit so that I can see you better and you can see me better. I hope that's better. And anyway, I want to talk to you about labor. I want to talk to you about working people. I want to talk to you about the economy. I want to take your questions. I have a poll question for you. If you insist, absolutely insist, I may even dance later on. I'm not going to dance now. I'm not quite there yet. Yesterday, Donald Trump said, and I am quoting, he said, "Our economy and jobs are doing really well." Our economy and jobs are doing really well. Now, in polls, national polls, and I know, I say the word polls, and you probably are as skeptical as I am, but that's all we have to go on. Donald Trump is falling behind Joe Biden, except on the issue of the economy. On the issue of the economy, that's the only issue where Trump still has an edge in terms of public opinion, which is absurd. Can we be clear? It's absurd. Let me show you something. I did this especially for you. This is a graph of jobs. And I want to just make sure you see this, because here's where we were in February. This is sort of leading up to February in terms of the number of jobs. And then what happened in February and then in March was a loss of 22 million jobs. And since then, we have been digging ourselves out. When Donald Trump and other commentators say the jobs are coming back, in fact, job growth, well, they're coming back. We had 4.8 million new jobs in June. We had 1.7 million jobs coming back. They aren't really new jobs. These are jobs that are just coming back. Remember, we lost 22 million. So this is just our effort to come back. 1.7 million in July. And then in August, only 1.4 million. In other words, the rate of job replacement, of rate of simply going back to where we were, we're not even halfway back yet. So when Donald Trump says our economy and jobs are doing really well, I don't know what he's talking about. When he says that we have job growth, we don't have job growth. We are not yet back to where we were at the start of the Trump administration. In fact, we're 4 million jobs right now, 4 million jobs less than we were at the start of the Trump administration in January of 2017. So we still have 11.5 million jobs lost. How can he say it's a good economy, and how can people believe it? I mean, this is just propaganda 101. If you say it over and over and over again, what? Many people begin to believe? But it's not true. The only part of the economy that is doing at all reasonably well, at least the only part of the economy that hasn't lost ground, is what? It's the stock market. And the stock market, by the way, it's barely where it was in February. It is still below where it was in February. But the stock market, remember, the richest 1% of Americans own half of the shares of stock in the US stock market. And the top 10%, richest 10%, own 92% of the shares of stock in the United States stock market. So for Trump to look at the stock market and say the economy is doing well really ignores 90% of Americans who are not doing well. In fact, during the entire first 3 years of the Trump administration, before we hit the coronavirus, the rate of job growth was slower than in the final 4 years of the Obama administration. So we have zero job growth right now. In fact, we're 4 million short of where we were at the start of the Trump administration. All of that job growth is now gone because of the coronavirus. The coronavirus is the major problem. And for Trump to say we are in good shape on the economy is not only wrong, it is doubly wrong, because the coronavirus has taken a toll on people, on human beings, and on the economy, far beyond the toll it's taken in any other rich country. And why is that? It's because of Donald Trump. It's because Donald Trump said what? He said it's a hoax. He played it down. He said, it's not my responsibility. Gave the responsibility to the states. So governors had to compete against each other for personal protective equipment and for ventilators and for everything else. And then what did he do? He muzzled the Centers for Disease Control. And then he reopened the economy too soon. He put pressure on governors. He said, if you don't like what your governor is doing, if your governor is not opening, demonstrate, go to the State House, revolt. And then what did he do? He poo-pooed the notion of wearing a mask. And he demonstrated for all the country that he was not going to wear a mask. And then he has what? He has rallies. He even had his particular inauguration where people are packed together. They're not observing social distancing. So time and again, over and over again, what he is doing, what Donald Trump is doing, is basically inviting coronavirus. The reason we have the coronavirus to the extent we do, 4% of the world's population in the United States, 22% of the deaths from coronavirus, and a huge toll on our economy. Why is that? It's because of Donald Trump. You can't talk about the economy without talking about the coronavirus, and you can't talk about the coronavirus without understanding Trump's significant role in making it as bad as it is. Meanwhile, what happens? Inequality continues to widen. During this coronavirus, we've seen again and again, billionaires are doing wonderfully well. Jeff Bezos personally hit $200 billion in net worth. 200 billion. You can't even get your mind around that. Elon Musk, $100 billion in net worth. I saw a couple of days ago, Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg, he says, oh, well, he's a great citizen. He says he's going to take new steps to protect the US elections. Well, what steps exactly? And by the way, why should any single person be in the position and have enough power to be able to take steps to protect the United States election? The mere fact that he can say, Mark Zuckerberg can say, I'm going to take new steps to protect the US election, means that he has the power over the United States election. That is a fundamental problem. That is a distortion of our system. He and Facebook should not have that kind of power. Well, I want to move on. I want to take a poll, all right? Now, this is your chance. Please, please take this poll. The question is, will we know the outcome of the election by December 1st, 2020? All right? A, yes. B, no. Will we know the outcome of the election by December 1st, 2020? What do you think? A, yes. B, no. I'll announce the results of the poll shortly. But I want to get on to your questions. The thing is that this is Labor Day. This is Labor Day 2020. There are 40 million people who face eviction right now. There are 29 million people who lack enough food in the United States right now. There are 20 million who have had their wages cut. There are 12 million who have lost their health care, their health insurance since the pandemic started. Donald Trump says our economy and jobs are really doing well. Hello. He has almost destroyed the United States economy. And he's turned us against each other. Okay, your questions. Marcus Henderson, how can Louis DeJoy pressure his former employees to make campaign contributions to the GOP and then reimburse them and say this is not illegal? Well, I mean, how can he, Marcus? He did. But it is illegal. This is illegal. You cannot. You can, as a CEO or any kind of executive of a company, you can't instruct or even suggest to your employees that they make campaign contributions to a party and then reimburse them for those campaign contributions. That violates campaign finance laws. It's one of the fundamental violations. So we know that Louis DeJoy, our Postmaster General, not only is he threatening to, in fact, he is holding up the mail at a time when we desperately need the US Postal Service to be working for us in this pandemic 8 weeks before an election. But he's also, in his former job, he violated the law. I hope he's prosecuted. Billy Weitze, did I pronounce it correctly, Billy? How can we better organize and grow union membership? And how can everybody help celebrate the spirit of Labor Day? Well, the biggest thing we need to do, and hopefully under a Joe Biden administration we will, we've got to make it easy to form a labor union, just a simple up or down vote of employees. That's what it should be. Employers have been taking advantage of the fact that it's complicated, and the complexity gives employers many more opportunities to suppress labor unions and suppress the vote. Also, we need to increase penalties on employers who fire employees who are trying to organize unions. Right now, the penalty is basically a slap on the wrist. What happens after going through the National Labor Relations Board and a hearing and everything else? The worst thing that it can happen to an employer is they have to reinstate the employee and provide back pay. All of that, which is less costly than the employer figures the cost would be of trying to have a union. Sarah Townsend, the Trump administration instructed federal agencies to end training on critical race theory. What is that and why? Sarah, critical race theory is a fancy word for simply the idea that over time our laws have discriminated against Black and brown people, and that we need to work together to end that discriminatory systemic pattern. And so it is very important that federal agencies work to end that kind of systemic racism, and that training was very important. Peter Schoenfeld, you have a similar question. Yesterday, Trump tweeted that the Education Department will investigate whether California schools are using curriculum based on the 1619 Project from the New York Times. And Trump said any state using such a curriculum would lose federal funding. Isn't this illegal, Peter, you ask? It is illegal. By the way, that 1619 Project, I just want you to make sure you are aware of that, because a lot of school systems across the country are beginning to use this in their curriculum. Why the 1619? 1619 is the time in American history when that dates the arrival of the first slaves to Chesapeake, the Chesapeake shores in Maryland. That is when slavery really began in America. And the whole notion of the 1619 Project is that's when we ought to center our curricula, our American history curricula, on that instead of Columbus? And Donald Trump is threatening to withdraw funding. Now look, it's important that we all admit and understand that he is now mounting a totally racist campaign. That's what he's doing. It's a racist campaign. He's throwing, well, he's been doing this for 4 years. I mean, he is a racist, but now he is a racist out of the closet, as it were. He is now doing things that are not only sending a signal to his base, but sending a signal across the board that this is racism, plain and simple. Meredith Perthwaite, do you think Trump's comments about military service members being losers and suckers will change voters' minds, or are they already too made up? Meredith, I think that 95% of voters, likely voters, have made up their minds, maybe 98%. I mean, there's been almost no change in the 42 to 44% of Trump supporters, people who say they're going to vote for Trump, and the majority who say that they don't like Trump and they are going to vote against him. But here's the thing. It's all about turnout. It's all about who actually votes. So the polls, even though they've been stable, are not important. It is motivation. Also, it's voter suppression, but it's motivation. And so that I think that these exposés of Trump's dumping on military families and his disrespect for soldiers, his disrespect, calling people who served in Vietnam suckers, I think at the margin, with regard to not his core support, but certainly people who might be independents, who might be wavering, it is going to have some impact. Leslie Templey, last week, Attorney General William Barr, can you, I mean, really, I don't remember an Attorney General as utterly corrupt, selling his principles, if he ever had any, to a president and to a president's efforts to basically be above the law, like we have here. John Mitchell, remember John Mitchell, who was Richard Nixon's Attorney General, who ended up in prison? Not nearly as bad as William Barr. Anyway, Leslie Templey. Last week, Attorney General William Barr said the Justice Department had indicted a Texas man for filling out 1,700 absentee ballots. Is that true? No. That is an outright lie, Leslie. I have looked into it. In fact, in 2017, one man was convicted in Texas of forging one woman's signature on a mail-in ballot in a Dallas City Council race. That's all we have. That's the only evidence of any problems. This is something that is very important for everybody to understand. Because mail-in ballots have security barcodes, and they also require signatures to be matched with registration forms. The rate of ballot fraud is infinitesimally small in the United States. In fact, the rate of ballot fraud is so small, there have been 491 prosecutions in all US nationwide elections from 2000 to 2012. All right, 491 in all that time, when billions and billions of ballots were cast. So Leslie, the Attorney General, is lying. He's lying through his teeth because he is basically part of the Trump cult. We have room for a few more, and then I want to get to the poll results. Leslie Templey, last week, Attorney General, Sally Dementelis, and an intelligence briefing from the Department of Homeland Security released Friday said Russian actors are likely to promote allegations of corruption, system failure, and foreign malign interference to sow distrust in democratic institutions. What are we doing about this, Sally? You want to know. Well, the states, the good news is that many states, and I've read through what the states are doing, many states are taking action. They are doing everything they can to prevent fraud, in this kind of fraud. I mean, they're taking action to prevent all kinds of fraud, but they're taking action to prevent hacking, and they're doing what they can. The bad news is that the federal government is not doing everything it should be doing. And in the act that the Democratic House of Representatives passed, called the HEROES Act, in May, there was money, there were billions of dollars for states and localities to harden, to make more secure their voting systems. And the Republicans have turned that down. They don't even want to do it. They even as a separate bill, they refuse. Obviously, how can Moscow Mitch, is he really cooperating, enabling what is going on in terms of Russian meddling because the Russians want Trump to win? I don't know. Okay, and finally, William Royals. Where are you seeing signs of hope during these troubling times? William Royals, I will get to your question moment. I want to just go to our poll results because we have the poll results. Remember, that question was, are we going to have the election returns, know who the next president is by December 1st, 2020? A, yes, and B, no. Well, 61% of you say yes. Good. I'm glad. But 39% of you, almost 40% of you, think we're still not going to know by December 1st. What do I think? Well, I am on the optimistic side. I think we will know, but it's not going to be easy. I mean, in other words, I think that the month of November is going to be a very bad, difficult month for this democracy. I think we're going to be tested as we haven't been tested before, since, again, going all the way back to 1860. So put your seatbelts on. And William Royals, where are you seeing signs of hope during these troubling times? And am I seeing signs of hope during these troubling times? My hope and the signs of hope I have are that I see and hear from young people and from women and from people of color, from people who have not voted before or people who don't really care, often some of the people that I talk with have not voted or have not really before expressed the determination that they now are expressing about voting. Determination about voting. That is what I consider to be the most hopeful sign. People who say to me, now granted, these are people who say to me, so there's a self-selection factor there, but I haven't seen this degree of outrage. I haven't seen this degree of determination in my lifetime to vote for Joe Biden and to get Donald Trump out of the White House. This election is not only critical to our democracy, it is critical to everything we want in the future. Because unless we get a person, and I'm going to use the F word, I hope you don't mind, but unless we get this fascist out of the White House, we're not going to have a democracy. Unless we get Donald Trump removed from the presidency, we don't have a chance to do anything we want for and in this country. Joy Conway, you're asking me to do something I said I might do, and that was you wanted me to do a little bit of what? Joy, you want me to dance? Well, let me just say this Labor Day 2020, one of the most difficult I think this nation has faced, but let's be optimistic if we can. And please join me. Keep the faith. Keep fighting. See you next time.